Alright, here's the next radio we're going to fix. It's a Meck made in Plymouth, Indiana, which is not far from here. It's a Trailblazer. That was the model, and it's coming apart. Probably sat in a barn for 30 years. But it's fixable. There's no veneer damage. So all it should need is a glue and refinish. The dial cover's missing, the knobs are missing. Cloth is kind of stained. We might replace that, I don't know. Other than that, the radio is complete, and it's just a standard 5-tube All-American 5 lineup. I bought this in an antique store for $5. For $5, I just couldn't turn it down. Heck, the tubes are worth that. Just in parts, so hey. I think we can make this into a cool looking little radio. It's a cheap set, very cheap set, but I like the look of it. Kind of a cute little thing. Alright, let's tear into it. Okay, the first thing to do is take the chassis out of the cabinet. And we've got 2 screws that need to come out. Boy, that's a long one. Look at that. 2 inches long. Same thing. Oh boy, look at that. Variable inductor tuning. That's something you don't see often. Normal radios use the air capacitor with the plates that mesh the rotor and stator. This one uses a coil with an inductor, a slug that moves in and out to change the inductance and tune the radio. Okay, that's cool. And the string is intact. Speaker looks good. It's got a little tear up here, but we can fix that. Extremely dirty. Okay, we've got the big IF cans here, so there's no danger of silver mica migration. So we don't have to screw with that. Okay, this electrolytic here is a replacement. Other than that, the radio looks original. I don't know about this one. Yes, that's a replacement as well. I can tell by the solder job they did. It's not a very good one. It's really messy. Anyhow, but these are replacements, but they were replaced a long time ago, back in the 50s. Okay, we've got 2 electrolytics in here, and we've got one in here as well. This says it's a 20 microfarad at 150 volt, and we've got an 80 and a 50 at 150 volt in there. Okay, so those will have to go, and the rest of these paper caps will have to go. The micas, we'll leave them. If we have a problem, we can test them, but those rarely go bad. Very rarely. It is possible, but they're not anything like these paper caps. You know, all of these paper caps are horrible. They have to go. They're bad. And the resistors, we'll check resistors as well. Now, something I don't see. Well, we got a loose wire here. We're missing the loop antenna. Missing the loop antenna. If it had one, I mean, most table radios like this had a loop antenna. But I only see one wire here. So it might have had a long wire antenna. I don't know. I mean, a cheap set like this, it is very possible. But, okay, let me find the writers. Let me find a schematic on this, and that'll tell us. So let me grab my writer's index. '47 index. Okay, this is a Meck, M-E-C-K. Might be under John Meck, though. I don't know. LM, Magnavox, lots of Magnavox. John Meck Industries. Okay, we got a Trailblazer here, which is what the dial says, so I assume that's the model number. There's no other number on here, so I guess it's the Trailblazer. Trailblazer. Now what the heck does that say? Could be a 15, a 16, or an 18. Very crappy scan. I don't know. Got this off the internet. 47 master index. One to XV, that's 15. Therefore that has to be 15. Okay, but that's something, a lot of the schematics you find online, like on nostalgiaair.com, the scans are so crappy you cannot make out these little numbers a lot of the time. But if you have the original writer's books, like I do, you'll be able to read all of these. Okay, I found it, Writer's Volume 15. Okay, so here's John Meck, and there's 3 of them here. Now, reading what this page says, there is 4 and 5 models of the Trailblazer. Okay, these 2 are irrelevant. This has Lochtel tubes in it, so we don't worry about that one. Yeah, the 35Y4, that's a Lochtel. Okay, we went octal. And looking at these 2 schematics, this one has a loop antenna, whereas this one has a long wire antenna. So, but there's the radio we have has 3 electrolytic capacitors. This schematic only shows 2, whereas this schematic shows 3. So this radio is kind of a mix between these 2 schematics. So what do we do? Well, I've come up with a plan looking at the values here, C10, 20, and a 20 microfarad. And this one used 20 microfarad caps as well. And that one used 320s. So I think it'd be pretty safe to say that we can just replace these with 20s. This one, even though it says 80 and a 50, we know this has been replaced. So what probably happened here was the serviceman back in the day did not have the right values on hand, and he just stuck in here whatever he had. And I'll tell you right now, an 80 and a 50 is way too large of a value for a 35Z5 rectifier tube, which is what's in here. My book here says the biggest you want to go is about a 40. So that 80, that was not good for this tube, because the surge this thing is going to cause when it goes to charge up is going to blow that tube out in short order. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and replace these electrolytics here. So before we cut them out, we're going to note which side is the positive and which side is the negative. These are polarized. You can only put these in one way. If you put them in backwards, they're going to blow up. And that's not fun. I've done that more times than I'd like to admit. So positive over here. And the way I do it, I cut the lead off close to the body, so you leave plenty in the radio here. And I've got a couple 20s right here. These are 22 microfarad at 160 volts. These were 150 volt. That's just fine. You can always go up in voltage, but never ever go down. And you can usually go up in value, but don't get too crazy with that either. Okay, I'm going to bend these and situate them. Okay, that one just goes to ground. Get over here, you. Cut them a little bit shorter. And I usually just J-hook them in here. It saves a lot of time. And they'll just fit down in there right like that. So I'm going to take these leads and I'm going to bend them. Bend a little hook on the end. Some people like to desolder the lead from the tube socket. That's perfectly fine. You do it your way, I'll do it my way. They're both just fine. Okay, now I'm going to bend these leads so it'll fit. And there we go. Now we can solder it. Always want to make a good mechanical connection first. In case this solder were ever to fail, which is highly unlikely, but if it were to fail, you would still have a good connection here because you bent the leads over. And there we go. And the leads on these are very thick, they're very strong and self-supporting, so that's not going to flop around anywhere. Okay, the next thing to do, cut these off, and these are color-coded. The red was the 80 microfarad, and the green was the 50. Black is the common negative, but we don't care about that, because we're just going to stick 20s in here. Bye-bye. Okay, all we care about is where the negatives go. And they just go to ground here. Okay, to do these, I'm going to strip these wires. Strip the ends of them here. I can't get that one. Let me pull this through. There we go. And now I can solder straight to these wires. So remember, there was 2 electrolytics in this case here. So we need 2 to replace it, and they have a common negative. Negative is this lead right here. See how it's marked on that side? So we're going to put the negatives together and just twist them together. Okay, so when we connect this, the black will go to the negative, and then each of these is a positive. Okay, so I've decided to just go ahead and terminate that black ground wire, and I've connected the negatives onto this lead right here, which is the negative of that other capacitor. So it's going to the same place, so that's okay. Okay, we don't need these leads this long. green one we do need a little longer. Okay, I've got heat shrink here. We're going to slide onto these leads first. Always do it first. Can't do it after. I always seem to forget that too. Make a real nice connection, and then you realize you forgot to put the shrink tubing over it and you got to undo everything. This one's got a little wax on the end of it. Now let's try it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tin the leads on the capacitors. I'm just going to solder them on. And there we go. We've got all our connections. All of our connections have been made. Next, I'm going to slide this shrink tubing over our wire and then shrink it on down. And we're going to shrink it on down. And that's good. This one was fine. We don't really need shrink tubing on this one because it ain't going to go nowhere. But these potentially could. And it's better to be safe than to be sorry. So the next thing we can just go through, and I'm going to shotgun recap all of these paper capacitors here and just get rid of them.
If it ain't dark, it's light. If you ain't sure, you might. It's gotta be this or that. If it ain't full, it's blank. If you don't spend, you bank. If it ain't Bing, it's Frank. It's gotta be this or that. Who can it be? If it ain't me, I know it's not your mother. Can't you see? It's gotta be one way or the other. Tell me what I must know. If you don't like, I'll go. If it ain't yes, it's no. It's gotta be this or that. What I must know. If you don't like, I'll go. If it ain't yes, it's no. It's gotta be this or that. It's gotta be this or that.
Okay, we have the radio entirely recapped of all the paper and electrolytic capacitors. These are good ones. These aren't those yellow rolled up Chinese ones you always see. These are Panasonic. Panasonic's a very good name. Anyhow, next thing we're going to do is we're going to check these resistors. And I thought, what better than to use my old cool vacuum tube voltmeter to do it. So let me put you in the stand here and zoom in on the scale. Okay, first one we're going to do brown, green, brown. What is that? 11510, so 150. 150, I'm not on it very good. Okay, there we go. There's 100 and there's 200, and it's a little high, about 170, but that's within, that's good. It's not high enough that we have to worry about it. Next one, brown, black, blue. 1060. God, what is that? 10 megs. Gee whiz. Bring that up to the 1 meg scale, and this should read 10 is in the middle there. And it's reading about 14 megs. Okay, that one's high. We might change that one. That one's pretty high. Yes. Okay, that one's a maybe. Next one. Red, black, green. 2050. 2 meg, okay. And here's 2, and that's 3. It's reading about 2.4 meg. Okay, that was not too high. Next one, red, green, yellow. 2540. 250K. 250. It's reading about 320K. Okay, next one. Red, black. I think that's orange. So 20 with 3 zeros after it. 2000. No. 20,000. There's 20, there's 30. It's reading about 2.4. Okay, we got a small one here, about a half a watt one. Okay, orange, white, red, 39,000, or 3.9K. And that's almost about 5K. That one might go. Probably got to change that one. Okay, here's this one's across the rectifier. And it looks like it's gotten a little hot before. Red, black, brown. 2K. No, 200. 200. Bring that up. Reading about 400. Okay, so that one's got to go as well. And that's about all the resistors I see in here. Turn that off. Okay, here's that 3.9K. It was pretty high. I forget what it measured, but it was out of tolerance. And here's that 200 one. And it's discolored. Looks like it's gotten hot. All these others weren't they weren't that high. Okay, here's the two resistors I replaced. Here's a 200 and there's a 3.9K. And something I just noticed is this is a hot chassis set. See, the cord comes in. One side goes to this tube socket. The other side goes to the switch. This is the switch here on the volume control. And then coming out of the switch, it goes right to ground. So one side of this line goes right to the middle part of this chassis. Any radio without a power transformer will have the line connected to the chassis in some way, through a resistor, capacitor, whatever. But this one is not isolated at all. So, when we go to power this up, which is what's next, I want to be sure to use my isolation transformer. Isolated output. It's got a variac on it too. And that will keep us safe. That will keep us isolated from the line. Okay, so we're ready to test the radio. It has been recapped. We've checked the resistors and changed out the bad ones. And I'm just going to do an initial power up to make sure that all the work we did in there was correct and make sure the radio works. This is a crappy old cord. I'm eventually going to change this, and I'm going to clean the radio up too, but I just want to test it right now and just make sure it works before we do anything else. Okay, the radio is on. Bring the variac up. Okay, here's my antenna going to this wire right here. It's about 20 feet. Connected on there.
The Indiana Department of Education recently granted Marion Community Schools a $70 I'm excited to partner with this great organization and the work they do in support of adoption and foster care.
Okay, that buzzing is my light. Let me turn that off. Oh, I thought it was. Yeah. I'm going to turn my other light off. Okay, that was it.
Want your pool to be crystal clear for the summer days ahead? That's simple. Stop by Beck's, right? Age device cigarettes and other nicotine products will jump from 18 to 21. The new rule.
Volume control is pretty dirty.
Not selling to underage smokers. Effectively couldn't be around.
Drive-through testing event tomorrow at Oak Hill High School from 2 p.m. to 7. For 1400 WB18 News, I'm Samantha Euler.
Well, for what it is, it performs decently. Okay, let's go ahead and start cleaning it up. I'll spray some cleaner in the volume control. This needs to be oiled. I'll have to fix the speaker. It's got a hole up here and it was buzzing. And then we'll pop a quick alignment on it and the radio should be done. Start working on the cabinet. Okay, here's the volume control in the radio, and it is a sealed control. There's no way in. So there's at least two ways to clean these that I do. One is you can take the nut off the front, disconnect all the wires, and take the control out. And this middle piece, you can pry up some tabs on the top here and actually open the volume control up. And you can see the resistive element and the wiper, and really spray some cleaner in there. Clean it good. Or a much quicker, easier way, which is what I've done here. Take the Dremel. I've got just the smallest little drill I can find, and I punched a hole in it. Now you have to be very, very careful doing this, because if you go in too deep, you can damage the control, and then you've got to change it. But I was very, very careful in drilling this hole, and I drilled it in the upper part here, because down here is the switch. Up here is the wiper and the resistive element, which is what we want to clean. So now we can take our contact cleaner and spray it in there, work the control back and forth, and voila, it's done. Just sprayed cleaner in there, and I worked it back and forth. Let's see how that did. Turn the set on. Uriac is on. And now we wait for it to warm up. Connect our antenna here.
Standard ground shipping and exclusions apply. We're all in uncharted territory.
See how nice that turns now, and there's no scratchy noise when you're turning it.
Advisors are here for you. Small business.
Okay, so that worked. That worked pretty good. And if you listen with the volume control all the way down, we don't hear, well, I hear a little hum, but an acceptable amount of hum. So those 20 microfarad caps we put in there are just fine. Perfect. So next, unplug it, and we'll just start cleaning it up. Clean all this dust off here, decades of dust and dirt. Yuck. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, so how you repair these speakers, I've got some glue here. This is a mix of Aleene's tacky glue and white Elmer's glue. And then you can use coffee filter paper. I've got just a little strip of notebook paper here. You can use many different things. Okay, so first off, I'll put some glue on the tear itself. Then I'm going to coat the piece of paper with it, saturate it, and there we go. That'll stop it from buzzing when you turn the volume up. Okay, I see another, it's like just a tiny little tear right there. So I'm going to take just a dot of glue and put some glue on it. There's another one up here. And that will glue the paper fibers back together. I see another tiny one right there. Okay, that looks good. And I also like that Aleene's tacky glue as well. You can find that at Walmart. And when it dries, it stays kind of flexible and rubbery, which is what you want for a speaker cone, because the speaker cone flexes as it makes the sound. Okay, next thing we're going to lubricate this dial string shaft. See, hear how it squeaks? It shouldn't do that. It's also pretty hard to turn. So I've just got some oil here. I'm going to put just a little dot right on the bottom of that shaft. Okay, next thing, I'm going to put some on the inside up here. Now be careful not to get oil up where the string rides on the shaft, because your string could start slipping. And that will drive you insane trying to fix it. Put just a little bit, and I put it on the inside. Okay, it already turns much, much smoother now. I don't really see anything else we could lubricate. Maybe this track that this slides on, but I better not worry about it. It works good as it is. Okay, we're almost done with the radio. I'm going to replace the cord next. Go ahead and cut it off here. So first things first, take note of where the old cord is hooked in your radio. This one goes to pin 5 of the 35Z5 rectifier. The other side goes to the switch. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and unsolder that. I can tell this cord has been replaced as well, because these are very crappy solder joints. There's one. There we go. And for a replacement cord, here's what I've got, an extension cord. And it's got a nice modern plug on it. And it's nice and flexible. Get these at Lowe's. They're $1.37 a piece. I kid you not. You just can't beat that. $1.37. And then they're 6-foot cords, so you got plenty of length there. Really don't need any longer than 6 foot. Any longer is kind of too long. But I wouldn't go any shorter than 4 foot. But 6 foot is absolutely perfect. So I cut the end off because we don't need this. I'm going to separate the wires. Maybe. It's a tough cord. I'm going to strip them. And we'll go ahead and tin the wire here. Okay, that looks good. I can shove it through. We already have a rubber grommet here. I want to make sure there's a rubber grommet where it goes through the chassis, because that metal edge will tear up the wire. But we've already got a grommet here, so we don't have to worry about it. Okay, one side goes to the on-off switch. That looks good. Okay, and then we'll bend that over. And that's good. Now to keep this from being able to be yanked back through, I've got a zip tie here, a little tiny zip tie. And that'll be just perfect. I've never had much luck tying that knot you're supposed to tie. It just never turns out right for me. But the zip tie works just as good. Okay, that ain't going nowhere. So that looks good. Okay, let me see how to do an alignment on this. This video's gone on long enough already. So I don't know if I'll do the alignment on camera, but I'll just have to see.
That they have on their voter rolls. And so they mailed them to me too. This is who my...
Okay, the alignment was super easy. I just followed the directions in my writer's manual here. And boy, it really woke it up.
Your mail-in voting ballots have a 25% fit.
Boy, it really woke it up. So you've got 6 adjustments here. You've got IF cans. You've got 2 adjustments on each. And you peak them, I think it was 455 kilocycles. Okay, this one right here is your oscillator trimmer. That will affect where the stations come in on the dial. So like, right now we're on 1400. And see we're right between 13 and 15, so we're on 14 there. And that's Rowell, that's 1190. And you see it's just right before the 12.
These are serious.
So we got the oscillator right on. Okay, and then this one is the antenna trimmer. And you just want to tune that. I forget what frequency it was, but just turn that for maximum output. And I just used my ICO signal generator, frequency counter, and my Ballantine output meter. This is a very, very sensitive voltmeter. And boy, you can really get these alignments right on with this thing. So that wraps up the chassis. I think it's about time to work on the cabin now. It needs a little help. But we can do it. Okay, the cabinet glue is dried. It's nice and tight now. And next thing to do is to start sanding it. And I wanted to point out something here. So what we've got here is called photo veneer. And it's not real veneer, it's just printed on here. And they did that to save money. Instead of trying to find some exotic veneer to put on here, they could just print it on here and, you know, save all the time and money. But if you sand this off, you can't get it back. It's printed on here. Luckily, looking at the damaged area here, the wood that's under this is the same veneer that's right here. It's just one big piece of veneer, and then the 2 strips, they stuck to it on here. So if we had to sand this off, it would just be all this grain right here, and we would be okay. It would look a little plain, but it would be okay. Now, like some of the Zeniths they used that use this photo veneer, the wood under it was very cheap wood. So if your photo veneer is not in good shape, you're kind of screwed. because if you sand it off and stain it, it's not going to look right. But if we wanted to sand it off and stain it, it would be okay. But it's in good enough shape. This is the only area that I see that's really damaged. I think I can be careful to sand around it, and I'm going to try to save it. And then, of course, we'll just stain right over top and clear coat the entire thing, and it'll be just fine. But I'm going to be careful. I'm going to try to save this, because I think I can. But all this other stuff, see this finish? It's so rough. It's just coming off on my hands. It's got to go. I'm going to go ahead and take this fabric out. We're going to probably change it anyway. It's just held in by staples. Oh yeah, look how faded that is. This is what it used to look like. Okay, so this will just put new fabric in there and it'll look great. Okay, and after the 80 grit sandpaper, we've got most of the finish off. I'm going to go with some 220 to really smooth it down right before we stain it. Okay, well that was a good one. Forgot to hit the camera button when I stained the darn thing. But here it is. It's a very light stain. It's golden pecan. I'm going to go for a second coat, see if I can't darken it up just a hair more. But I think that looks pretty good. Okay, it's time for a second coat. Okay, I'm going to let that dry about 5 minutes, and then we're going to have to wipe the excess off. because we're staining, we're not painting. And if you don't wipe it off, it'll turn sticky. But just wait and let it soak in the wood a little bit, and we'll come back and wipe off the excess. Okay, the radio has been sitting out in the sun for past 5 hours, and it looks nice and dry. So it's time we lacquer it. Here's what I've got to lacquer it with. Clear brushing lacquer, gloss, whatever. Lacquer is lacquer, whether it says brushing or not. If it's too thick, you can thin it down with lacquer thinner. Got this at Lowe's, and it's perfect. I don't have to thin this down at all. And it's gloss. I like glossy radios. That's how most of them were originally. Or glossy. Anyhow, let's go spray it. We're almost done. Okay, the one last thing we got to do before we reassemble this radio, I'm going to go ahead and put new cloth on this. And I'm thinking I can save and reuse the cardboard, but if not, no big deal. Just use some new cardboard. Anyhow, peel this off and just put new cloth on this and see how it turns out. Alright, here's the fabric. I was able to reuse this old cardboard. It's still pretty strong, but there we go. I have the fabric pulled nice and tight over the speaker cutout here, and it's ready to install. Here's the cabinet. Shiny that is. Boy, that turned out good. Okay, let's start reassembling. Ooh, that's going to look good. Okay, the heat gun is warmed up. Heat glue. And we'll do this side. Wow, does that look good? Okay, now there's one more thing before we reassemble it, and that's something I mentioned earlier that was missing. Well, I actually don't know if it's missing or not. It might not ever had one. Talking about the dial cover. I don't know. I could see this not having a dial cover, but I think it'll look better with one. So I made my own. And I'll put a link in the description of this video how you can make yours at home too. I made this. This cost me less than $1. Whereas if you buy them online, you have to pay $20. It's a little crazy. Although they're not easy to make. So I could justify 20 bucks, but they're not hard to make once you learn how to do it. Okay, that looks a lot better, I think. Go ahead and glue that in there too. I'll wipe it off first though. Go right like that. Well, it's not perfect. I got a little cockeyed, but hey, it's good enough for me. There we go. Make sure there's no glue strings in it. Nope, we're good. All right, let me get the chassis and we'll reinstall it. Wrap this baby up. So our radio chassis working nicely. Dial cover fits perfectly. Okay. Put the screws in it and we're done. There we go. Make sure it's all centered and tighten them down. looks good. Nice new cord on it. You plug it in. Make sure it works. Antenna. Now, I looked through the knob box and I came up with these. Kind of cool looking, kind of a bullet shape. But I think they'll fit pretty good. Look pretty good. It's about all I've got, really. It's a little tight. Those look pretty good. They match the gold dial.
Radio 1030. Slight wind out of the southeast at 8 miles an hour. You are listening to Des Moines News Radio 1040, WHO.
Adventures in time and space, transcribed in future tense. The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with Street and Smith, publishers of Astounding Science Fiction, bring you Dimension X. The civilization of the galaxy spread across 200 million worlds. The black void of space swarmed with the ships of the Empire. But far off the trade route, almost forgotten, lay the dying planet Earth. A backwater in galactic culture, a place of exile, a pebble in the sky. I landed on Earth, on the one spot which I would have called civilized. A patch along the desolate heights of the Himalayas that surrounds the palace of the imperial governor of Earth.
For Virginia, so in style, we thought that
didn't realize that it was a different vibe down there, how much food I was consuming. But
Well, there you go. That's how we restore a little table radio like this. Of course, it's nighttime now, so we're not getting a whole lot of stations on here, but it's a good playing, good sounding radio, I assure you. Boy, that cloth turned out nice. It really matches the radio good. I like it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments and what I should do maybe better. Or if you have any comments or complaints, just let me know. I hope you enjoyed it. But wait, we're not done yet. Alright, here's the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Well, maybe not once in a lifetime, but pretty rare opportunity here. You, my viewers, will get to vote on which radio gets fixed next. here is contestant number 1, and this is an old RCA Victor. It's got a 45 player in here. We can fix that as well. They're not too hard. It's all here. It's extremely dirty, but it'll need a refinish as well, which is no problem. I actually heard this is a pretty rare and maybe valuable model, because they didn't make this model for very long. And it's a pretty early production since it had the metal tone arm and metal platter. Okay, moving on, contestant number 2. I don't even know what this is. The dial's so dirty I can't even read it. Okay, missing a knob, and this one probably isn't the correct knob. I'd say these are the correct knobs right here, these round ones. And this will need refinished as well, but that's no problem. Or we have contestant number 3. This is a Crosley. Very neat looking big dial. I mean, look how big this dial is. Very neat, kind of imposing, streamlined cabinet. Might need painted though. It's got a bad discoloration on the top here and got a couple of bad spots in it. It's even cracked down here. So in the comments, let me know which radio you vote for. And I'll have more details about it in the description about when the contest ends. Not really a contest, but oh well. So just let me know and look in the description for more details. As always, thank you for watching and take her easy.